Florence, the birthplace of the Italian Renaissance. How did it get to be such an architectural marvel, and who helped shape its beauty and influence over Europe? In today's video, I'll take you on a journey through Florence, Italy, and show you 10 historically significant places you'll want to visit when you're here. But first, we'll need to take a step back in time, starting at the city's Roman origin 2,000 years ago. In the 1st century BC, Florence was originally founded as a Roman military colony and quickly grew into an important center for commerce and trade. Then came the medieval growth period. During the Middle Ages, Florence became a city-state and grew into a major cultural and economic center. It was home to powerful banking families, including the historically famous Medici family. Following the Middle Ages was the Italian Renaissance, a period of cultural and artistic growth that began in the 14th century and had a profound impact on Florence. Artists such as Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Botticelli lived and worked in the city, producing some of the world's most influential works of art. The most influential period was that of the Renaissance, which began in the 14th century and lasted until the 17th century. At the heart of this cultural movement was the Medici family, who were the most powerful and influential family at the time. They were an extremely wealthy family whose fortune began when the Medici Bank was established in 1397 by Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici. The bank grew rapidly and became one of the most powerful in Europe. Because of their wealth, the family was able to fund the arts and architecture. They sponsored many of the most significant artists of the Italian Renaissance, including Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Botticelli. Now that we've had a brief glimpse of Florence's past, let's fast forward to modern day, where I'll show you 10 historically significant places you'll want to explore when you're here. Starting at number 1, the Duomo, also known as the Duomo di Firenze and the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. It is truly breathtaking. It's one of, if not the most recognizable landmarks in Florence. Construction of the cathedral began in 1296, and it took over 140 years to complete. The dome was the last piece to be completed, as it proved to be a significant architectural challenge in those early days of engineering. The final construction was completed in 1436. The famous dome was designed by Filippo Brunelleschi and is considered a masterpiece of Renaissance architecture. One of the most fascinating features of the Duomo is the bell tower, or campanile, located adjacent to the cathedral. The tower, designed by Giotto di Bondone, is covered in beautiful pink, green, and white marble, and is adorned with sculptures and reliefs. It takes 400 steps to get to the top, but it's worth the views of Florence. Moving on to number 2, the Palazzo Vecchio, a medieval palace located in the heart of Florence in the Piazza della Signoria square. It has been the seat of government for over 700 years and served as a city hall since the 14th century. The palace is famous for its ornate decorations and impressive art collection. Over the centuries, the Palazzo Vecchio was the site of many important Florentine events, including political meetings, court hearings, and public ceremonies. Notable rooms inside the building include the Hall of the 500, a massive hall that served as the meeting place for the city's governing council, and the Room of the Elements, which features a ceiling decorated with astrological symbols. Next up, number 3, the Uffizi Gallery. One of the most famous art museums in the world, you'll find it in the heart of Florence. It was originally built in the 16th century to house government offices, but was later converted to the museum it is today. Here you'll find an impressive collection of Renaissance art, including works by Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, Raphael, and Caravaggio. You'll find works such as The Birth of Venus, Primavera, and Annunciation, to name a few. You'll also get to see an impressive collection of ancient Roman and Greek sculptures, which no doubt had an immense influence on the inspiration of the Renaissance artists. The Uffizi Gallery is very popular, and it's a good idea to book tickets in advance so you don't have to wait in long lines. You might also want to take a look at their upcoming temporary exhibitions throughout the year before you book your travel. Number 4, the Ponte Vecchio, a medieval bridge that spans the Arno River. It is one of the oldest and most iconic landmarks in the city. Today's bridge was built in the 14th century, but it has a longer history dating back to Roman times. You'll likely recognize the bridge as it's been in countless postcards. The bridge is famous for its shops and stalls built directly onto the bridge itself. Originally, these shops were occupied by butchers and other merchants. Today, they are mostly jewelry, souvenir, and art shops. You might be surprised to know that the Ponte Vecchio also has a secret passage called the Vasari Corridor. It runs along the top of the bridge and connects the Palazzo Vecchio and the Pitti Palace. It was built to hide members of the Medici family from public view. Halfway there at number 5, the Piazza della Signoria, a large square in the center of Florence that has been the political town square since the 14th century. Walk through the square and you'll be surrounded by historic buildings all around, including the Palazzo Vecchio and the Uffizi Gallery. The square is home to a number of important sculptures, including a copy of Michelangelo's David and the Fountain of Neptune, a large statue of the Roman sea god that was built in the 16th century. The original David by Michelangelo once stood tall in the square, but was later moved to the Accademia Gallery in 1873 to protect it from the elements. In the square, you'll also find an open-air gallery, the Loggia dei Lanzi, which houses a collection of ancient and Renaissance period sculptures, including the Perseus with the head of Medusa by Benvenuto Cellini. Interesting to note, the square has been the site of many important events in Florentine history, including public executions, political protests, and attempted political assassinations. Next up, number 6, the Oltrarno District. The Oltrarno District was once the area of commerce and trade. Historically, the district was the headquarters of the wool and silk trade. Florence was known for its production of fine textiles with beautiful silks that only the very wealthy could afford. Brightly colored textiles were made possible with the chemical alum imported from the Ottomans and used as a dye. Take a stroll through the Oltrarno District, located on the south bank of the Arno River, and check out the Palazzo Pitti, a magnificent Renaissance palace that was once the residence of the Grand Dukes of Tuscany and now serving as a museum. You'll find a vast collection of art, including works by Raphael, Titian, and Rubens. Getting closer at number 7, the Hospital of Innocents, or Ospedale degli Innocenti in Italian, is Italy's oldest public institution. Located in the Piazza della Santissima Annunziata in Florence, it was founded in 1419 by the Silk Guild as a founding hospital for abandoned children. The historical building was designed by Filippo Brunelleschi, the famous Italian Renaissance architect, and is considered one of the most important works. The facade of the building is characterized by a series of arches that create a sense of harmony and symmetry, and the interior features a beautiful courtyard with a central fountain. At its peak, the hospital housed up to 1,000 children cared for by the nuns of the Order of San Giovanni di Dio. Today, you can visit the Hospital of Innocents since it's now a museum that tells the story of the institution and its role in the history of Florence. The museum features a collection of artwork including frescoes by Domenico Ghirlandaio and Andrea della Robbia. Next is number 8, the Basilica of San Lorenzo. Located in the heart of Florence, it is one of the largest and oldest churches in the city. Designed by Filippo Brunelleschi and completed in the 15th century, the church features a simple yet elegant exterior that is characterized by the Renaissance style with a facade made of smooth, unadorned stone. The interior of the basilica is equally impressive, with a spacious nave that is flanked by 2 aisles and a beautiful altar that is made of marble featuring a sculpture of the Virgin Mary by Donatello. The church is also home to a number of chapels that are dedicated to various saints and other figures. One of the most impressive features of the Basilica di San Lorenzo is the Medici Chapel, a mausoleum that was built for the powerful Medici family in the 16th century. The chapel is located at the back of the church and is decorated with intricate frescoes, sculptures, and mosaics. They depict scenes from the lives of the Medici family members who are buried there. The basilica even houses the underground crypt of Cosimo de' Medici, who lived from 1389 to 1464. Cosimo became one of the most powerful men in Florence and used his wealth to fund public works, including the construction of the Medici Palace and the expansion of the University of Florence. Almost there at number 9, the Boboli Gardens behind the Pitti Palace, which was once owned by the Medici family. is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The gardens are one of the most famous visited green spaces in the city and are considered a masterpiece of traditional Italian design. The gardens were commissioned by, you guessed it, the Medici family in the 16th century and were designed by a team of architects and landscapers including Niccolò Pericoli, Giorgio Vasari, and Bartolomeo Amanati. Covering an area of over 45,000 square meters and divided into several district areas, each section highlights its own unique features. The gardens are also home to a number of picturesque paths and winding alleys, terraces, and balconies, offering panoramic views of Florence. And finishing up at number 10, the Walls of Florence. Take a hike along a section of the walls and immerse yourself in the old days of Florence. Imagine what life would have been like for medieval Florentines. The Walls of Florence are a historic system of fortifications that were built to protect the city from attacks during the period of the Renaissance. Constructed between the 14th and 16th centuries, they were designed by a number of famous architects and military engineers, including both Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. Since Florence was becoming well known for its immense wealth, attacks from neighboring states were not uncommon. The walls consisted of defensive structures, including gates, towers, and ramparts, designed to withstand attacks from artillery. By the 19th century, the walls were no longer necessary, and much of the remaining structures were dismantled. You'll find today's remaining sections of the districts of Oltrarno, San Frediano, and San Nicolo. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this tour of Florence, the birthplace of the Italian Renaissance, and that you're feeling inspired to visit these historical landmarks. If you enjoyed watching, please give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more upcoming travel content. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.